Welcome to the Sparky Coach podcast, another lounge room session. And we've got our guest today, Joe Pratt from Benchmark Electrical. Welcome along, Joey. Thanks for coming along.
No worries, mate.
So Joey is based in the Coffs region. He's been there for the last couple of years. Obviously been in the industry for a while. He's got a bit of a unique story of starting his business twice, basically, in two locations, which we'll dive into a little bit more around a bit, as we go. But been in Coffs for about 2 years now. Got a team of around about 4 or 5, I think, from memory, off the top of my head, and sort of work across a few different sectors of the electrical industry that we'll dive into a little bit more. But Joey, sort of give us a bit of a rundown and elaboration of sort of where Benchmark is now.
So benchmark. So yeah, we've been in Coffs for 2 years now. Technically, on paper, Benchmark's been running for 6 years, but we'll dive into that shortly, I'd imagine. We relocated back up here, and then we've grown it from me to 2 tradies, apprentice, and an admin in the 2 years. It's very different the second time around, starting it. But we mainly do the 3 main areas we focus on is new build renovations, typically more on the higher end, not your whack them together homes, the more detailed ones where you've got a whole heap of different small things that you can miss on the plan if you're not careful. Level 2, ASP, because obviously in New South Wales we could need that to climb pole, unlike you guys in Queensland, you can just do whatever up there. So we're level 2, and we also do EVs. There's another one of our big major areas we focus on.
The EV sector, getting into the renewable, new age technology. So I guess I want to sort of probably elaborate on the unique journey that you have at some point, but let's transport back to young Joey. How did you get started in the industry, and sort of what did your apprenticeship look like?
So I started apprenticeship at 16.
Yep.
So I finished year 10 at high school, went straight into the apprenticeship. Not because I sucked at school, I was doing quite well at school, but I just didn't want to go to uni. So we picked up Sparky. Picked up that through a mate's dad, I think, was the connection, as it always is. It's never just a random person on the street that you get an apprenticeship with, is it? So yeah, we did that, and then he was a small company at the time, just me and him when we started, and his brother was a subby. In that time, so I was with him for 8 years, all up.
Okay.
And in that time, we did everything from small stuff. He was level 2 as well, so we did that. We did the whole metering change deal, solar, class 2 works, like multi-rise apartments, commercial on the bottom, that kind of stuff, as well as your small basic real estate reno, caravan repairs. So we did a wide variety of stuff. We also spent 6 months doing a sand mill, so heavy industrial stuff as well. So very varied my apprenticeship was.
That sand mill sort of based at like a sort of quarry as such.
Quarry, pretty much.
Quarry
So it's in Coffs, our apprenticeship, apprenticeship. So Coffs doesn't really have an industry sector.
Mm-hmm.
When you Google the industries in Coffs, it's fishing and tourism.
Okay.
And now aged care. So not a huge industrial sector. So the guys that do it in Coffs do it. Like, that's all they do.
Yeah, it's sort of, they just bounce around between the
sawmills and the fishing, the co-op and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. So essentially, a lot of processing, more so than manufacturing or anything like that. That's your industries based around the natural resources as such, so to speak, and or
no steel mills or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, no, interesting. And then, so obviously you grew up in Coffs, so you're back there now where you came from. So you spent the 8 years, obviously, with that business, doing bits and pieces. Did that business evolve over time as well? Did other people
when I left, my boss at the time had 5 staff, several subbies. He's still running now. He's still around Coughs.
Yeah.
Which is quite a fun conversation every now and then. But yeah, he's evolved to that, and I think he's probably getting near the end of his tenure. I'd say he'd be hitting mid-60s.
Okay, yeah. All right, so he's been around for a long time.
Yeah, well, his wife's family is like an original Coffs Harbour name.
Okay.
So he's originally not Coffs, but his wife's family is a Coffs Harbour name. So he's been operating in Coffs as an electrician for probably 25 years or something like that now.
Okay, yeah, so for a decent period of time. And then, so did you get a bit of obviously wide exposure with a wide variety of work? And I think leaning into being a regional area is that you sort of got to wear a lot of hats when you're in the regional areas, as opposed to, I guess, niching down, which you probably can get away with a little bit more in the metropolitan, unless you did touch on a little bit the industrial side of it all, that there's probably a handful of guys in some regional areas that they almost exclusively work for one or two type of businesses or sectors, and that's almost a way of that they don't have direct employees, that the particular large so they have to get subbies in, or essentially it's like an agreement that we just got a contractor arrangement sort of thing. So with the wide, I guess, exposure, did you get thrown in the deep end a lot? Do you feel?
Probably less now, because I think I've been thrown in the deep end that often that there's no deep end really. I think I've touched every part of the electrical industry now, at least once, probably. Yes. But my staff definitely gets thrown in the deep end now.
Okay.
Nice. But as an apprentice and as a young tradie, it was a lot of what the hell's going on here? Let's figure it out kind of deal.
Yeah. And didn't really have a choice. It was sort of like, well, we've got to figure it out because there's no other option.
Yeah, and there's no one else that can do it.
Yeah.
No. Really.
Do you reckon that benefited you in the long run?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Not being stuck, like I've had coming through the business now, we've had guys that have literally just done one type of electrical, the whole thing. And when you take them out of that little pocket, they're back to like a second or a third year apprentice. So I feel like exposing yourself and being exposed to a whole heap of different areas really helped with just picking what you wanted to do, I think.
So then I probably want to roll on from there is the uniqueness. So we'll touch on it. We've probably left everyone a little bit of suspense for the time for a period of time. Is that Joey's unique sort of journey is he's done it twice. So he started a business twice. So let's roll forward to south coast of New South Wales.
Yeah.
So obviously you did your 8 years with your original employer or boss that you worked with and did your apprenticeship with, and which is a solid tenure. I think I did the similar scenario. I did over 2 stints though. I had a break post my apprenticeship. So finishing up, did you head straight down to the south coast to?
Yeah. So we moved down. So my wife and I got married, and we were married for 3 years, and then 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then we moved down to close enough. It all blurs together after 11 years, doesn't it? But we moved down to the south coast, so Kiama, so south of Wollongong, an hour and a half south of Sydney.
Was there what was the motive around that?
We actually moved down to be a part of like a new church build. So so we moved to the church we were involved in Coughs. They were starting a church down in Kiama. So we're like, as a young couple with nothing really going on, we're like, cool, we'll throw our hands up and went down.
Yeah.
And we were a part of that journey down there as well. In that time, we obviously started a business and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we were down in Kiama for 5-6 years.
Yes. Yeah. Nice. And then so obviously moved to Kiama. Did you just start the business straight away, or did you work for someone?
So we moved down there. I got a job with a local guy in Wollongong. Wollongong, Shell Harbour area.
The whole, that south, you sort of
It's
travel around the whole area. Yeah.
South Sydney.
Yes.
So I got a job with him, but he was local, but we did 90% of our work in Sydney.
Okay. So you used to travel up each day.
Used to travel up every day. So it was like 4 a.m. starts, come home at like 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Which got pretty old very quickly.
Yeah. Started to wear thin after a while.
Especially when you're only on like $32 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't paying these guys travel to start off with. So I pushed him for that. So I was like, if you make it, like, you're making me drive up there every day, I want to be paid for it.
Yeah, which is totally fair.
So we did that. And then I did that for 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to him about, hey, I'm sick of going to Sydney, sick of this, sick of that. I'm going to look and start my own business. This was in February.
Mm-hmm.
My plan was to just keep working with him and doing stuff and get everything prepped in the background and then kick it off July was the plan. Had a chat to him about that. Week's notice, gone, done.
I like it.
Yeah, thrown into the deep end of that, it was all of a sudden, hey, crap, what am I going to do scenario. And then we started Joe Pratt Electrical initially then.
Yeah, nothing like a branding of who you. It says what it is and does what it says.
As a sole trader, it was the easiest way to go.
Easiest way to go. So kicking off. So what were the challenges? I think that because obviously there was a plan. And that plan got ripped up pretty. I'm going to say probably within 24 hours. It sort of went from being like, oh, we'll have it. We'll roll into this to, hey, it's no, we're not rolling into it. We're literally skydiving into it.
Yes. So yeah, when we moved down, also just a little bit of a back caveat to it. When we moved down to Kiama and Wollongong, my wife had a job in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
She was working in that, and that workplace was really, really shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So she worked there for a week and then couldn't find any other work after that for a while. So the caveat, so when I told the guy I wanted to start my own business and lost it at a point there, I think it was 3 weeks with literally no income.
Okay, wow.
And so making the business work, we had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that stage, I had a 1985 Jeep Ute. I loved it.
Is that a collector's item?
It was a collector's item. There was only, I think, 400 or something of them made ever.
Please tell me it got Joe Pratt Electrical down the side or something like that.
No, it never got that. Never got that. The toolbox has got it, but it never got it.
Okay, yeah, cool. So you had that. So it's sort of very much. So was there? I think too. The other thing too is like let's transfer back or step back a little bit in time. Is that I mean, obviously, there's always been a requirement for trades and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't at the level that it is now in most areas. So there's an element of apprehension. Was it a stressful period for that short period of time?
I think stress is an understatement in that scenario.
Yeah, probably panicked almost in a way. Like
pretty much, it got to that stage. So we had to make the business work. Knew nothing about business.
Okay.
I was kind of fortunate where my parents have run a business now for their own business for 30 years now.
Okay.
Nearly 30 years. So I could lean on them for that, but it's a totally different sector. They sell educational products. I'm a tradesman, very different.
Yeah, so there's an element of like, hey, we can lean on with some basic like understandings and sort of
and stuff like that.
Like some important, but yeah, very different.
They're selling.
The first thing that springs to mind often is the transactional nature of it. Is that obviously so for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, the product that they're probably selling is this is our product, pay for the product, and then we give you the product. Whereas obviously in the trade services and particularly the electrical world, it's that, hey, here's the product, and then we'll ask for the payment. So it's almost reversed. So there's a risk associated with it, obviously. So obviously there was a bit of guidance there, but tell me what the sort of first 12 months looked like, or even the first 3 months. What did it sort of look like?
A lot of it was very quiet business-wise, obviously, because we moved down to Kiama. We knew no one.
Yeah, so you had no real. I mean,
I
I've
had no
been.
network either, at that
Yeah,
stage.
right. Okay.
So going from up coast where we'd been for our whole lives, having a huge network, and moving down there to where we knew 8 people
Yeah,
initially.
wow. Yeah.
Now everyone that moved to the area.
Yeah, sweet. So it's like my network is 8 people who are in the same position as me. That I'm number 7 and 8 in their circle as well.
Yes.
So awesome.
Yeah. So finding work wasn't easy. We went down the high pages route initially, which was good, but high pages is its own thing.
Yep.
And then through the church, there was a plumber in the church, so I met him.
Mm-hmm.
And we started bouncing work back and forth. He'd been in Kiama for 40 years, so that helped our network.
Oh wow. Yes.
So that helped my network a lot, getting to know him and working alongside with him because he was just past some work pretty much. Our first, I think, 20 jobs came from him.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it just shows you the power of personal networks in reality.
Yeah, and then so was it just a lot of maintenance style work, or
A lot of
was it just
small stuff like PowerPoints here, there.
Cool.
And then it literally came down to, I think, what was the first big move we did? I think it was just phone calls. So I started ringing bathrooms and kitchen guys.
Okay. Yeah.
And just going, hey, I'm Joe. This is me. This is what we do. Do you need a hand?
Yes.
And we picked up one kitchen and one bathroom mob from that.
Yeah.
And then chugged along with that for a little bit. As the church grew a bit to our network group.
Yeah. So you're able to lean on a reliable network
The reliable
within
network.
that.
And that was a builder, so we picked up him, which was good.
Yes.
A couple of real estate agents and stuff like that.
Yeah. So as your network, so time in the game ultimately. So just
Pretty much.
the time in the business. Okay. Cool. And then so. How did it evolve over the years? So I think it was about 4 years in total in the area for 5 years in
4 or
total.
5 in total business wise.
Yeah. And then where did you sort of end up towards the end? And we can sort of put a marker in.
2 tradies, 2 apprentices, admin, and me in the end.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
That was our final numbers before we. So obviously we made the call to move home, so we made everyone redundant.
Yeah. So closed it all down. So what was the business like? And looked like you had the 4 people involved in it, like the traders, the apprentices. What type of work were you doing? Were you humming along quite nicely? Was it a bit predictable and sort of had some continuity to it? And sort of what sort of work was it?
We pushed massively into the real estate space.
Okay. Yes.
Down there, we ended up with, I think, 15 real estates was our max number of real estates we were doing work for.
Yeah, and was that spread out over that whole south coast, like the sort of northern area of the South Coast region?
Berry to Wollongong.
Okay, yeah, so inland and then north-south, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
How far south would you go down, like Nowra sort of way, or did you pull stuff?
Sometimes, not a lot.
Not a lot. So sort of Gerringong was sort of where it sort of...
Gerringong was our lot. Gerringong, like just this side of the Shoalhaven River.
Okay, no, yeah, so it's a decent area that you, like from one end to the other. Still
so it's about an hour and a half to the top and bottom.
Yeah, so it's servicing, and you're sort of smack bang in the middle, or not probably, a little bit southish, but not...
Yeah, it's a bit south, but being close to Wollongong helped.
Yes.
Just the sheer numbers of people.
Yes.
And then we pushed into real estates because we saw that no one was really doing it well.
Yeah, no one was servicing it, and obviously being that it's essentially Wollongong's a city, like there's a lot of people. There's a university, there's a football team, there's all sorts of bits and pieces, so it's got a bit of exposure, obviously, and then also too, it is a bit of a transient population there as well. In sort of with the university, obviously people coming and going.
Yeah, yes and no, but there's also, you'll be surprised how many people live in Wollongong and work in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's amazing how many people commuted from even Kiama to Sydney daily.
Yeah, well, there's a train, isn't there, all the way down to Gerringong?
Yeah, it's fast. Yeah.
which takes you in. So obviously you identified that market in the real estate. What do you think you did really well in that space to be able to get on 15? Obviously admin intensive.
Oh, huge.
Quite yeah, you're probably with 4 guys and yourself. What were you punching out, like 50, 80 jobs a week?
Yeah, our max, the most one guy ever did on a day was 12 jobs.
Yeah, okay. Well,
that was the most he ever did.
yeah, so quite intensive. And
Yeah,
what do you think you did really well?
for us, it was just reactive time.
Okay.
Like, in all reality, down there, we'll never booked more than a week and a half, 2 weeks ahead. Never.
Okay.
So to say have forecast and planning wasn't there, but we knew the work was coming. Just stuff hadn't broken at people's houses yet.
Yeah, so a lot of work orders would come through
Yeah,
on a weekly and daily basis as
yeah,
such.
yeah. And then mixed in with that, we had a few decent projects along the time as well.
Uh-huh.
We did a huge reno, which ended up, I think, reno-wise for electrical, it ended up being close to 110 grand.
Yeah, well, yeah, so decent, very, very decent.
Yeah, and then we also had a few builders in the commercial space and residential space as well to mix it in.
Okay.
So we weren't just solely real estate and service, we had a little bit of project there as well.
Okay, yeah. And that would buff out the weeks a little bit with some more predictability.
Yes. Yeah, we're able to go, cool, we know that we've got at least enough work for 2 guys for a bit.
Cool. And then I know that you did implement a 4-day work week towards
Yes.
the end.
Yes, we had a 4-day.
Yeah, what prompted that, and sort of how'd you go about it?
We had a 4-day work week mainly there was probably 3 reasons that really pushed us over the edge. One was finding staff.
Okay.
Could not find staff anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how much we wanted to pay, because we were so close to. Different to here, Wollongong down there, you had the big industrial sector, big money.
So you got the mining down there.
You got mines as well. There's mines as well, and there's also Sydney.
Yes.
So guys were getting 60, 70 an hour.
Okay.
And as a residential business, we couldn't match that.
No.
So we had to match and compete with lifestyle compared to money.
Okay, yeah.
So we pushed the 4-day work week, so 4 10-hour days, 7 to 5. And then the way we worked it and implemented it was we were open 5 days.
Okay.
So we were still Monday to Friday scheduled work, but one trading apprentice team had Monday off, one trading apprentice team had Friday off.
Okay.
So we were full capacity Tuesday to Thursday.
Okay. And you could still service.
Still service. We had to, because we had that kind of. We weren't just builders. We had to be able to be open for reactive calls.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. And then what was the response from the team, or like being able to hire once that sort of kicked in?
So we picked up probably 2 guys pretty quickly doing that.
Okay. Yep.
We spoke to our current staff about it all initially and worked through all that. We had to do, obviously, when you're changing contracts, you had to do individual agreements and all that stuff, but anyone knew we had a new contract. And then we picked up work with that. They loved it. The staff loved it. As far as scheduling and on my end of it, I hated it.
Okay, yep.
Because I had to be physically available, being at that time the sole phone decision, everything. I had to physically be on my game 7 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah, so you actually extended your hours.
Extended my hours by an extra 10 hours.
Yes, okay.
Realistically, I had to.
Yeah, no, because you were the pivotal sort of cog in the wheel. So
we didn't have full-time admin. No.
No, okay. So obviously been a bit of growth year on year that you were down there. Things were probably.
We had COVID too.
Yeah, you jumped through COVID with it, which was probably interesting. Coming towards the end of it, when you and your wife made the decision to relocate back home, were you pretty happy with the way the business was going? Were you sort of looking at more Like, was there more potential, more growth on the cards, or were you looking to stabilize, or were you looking to sort of increase profits or anything like that, or, and in turn get your efficiencies cranking? Where do you think you were sort of placed?
We had massive conversations about this in Montana, my wife and I.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to move to Coffs in 5 years anyway.
Okay, yeah.
To get up here so my daughter could start school up here.
Okay.
So she wasn't moving primary schools or anything. We were up here for that.
Yeah.
So we had basically a decision to make where the business was still growing, we'll get new clients. We're still getting freaking work down there. But doing it. I'm just passing it on.
Yes.
But we had a choice to make, either in the next 4 years push extremely hard to get to a point where it's either self-runnable or sellable.
Okay, yes.
Or we pack up, move, and start again.
Okay, yeah.
After several conversations with different people back and forth, Montana and I discussed it. We're like, why put all the effort in down there to have an asset that may or may not sell?
Yes.
Or may or may not be runnable by itself in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
To move and then waste all that time down there, whereas we could be up here doing it already.
Okay.
And
then how long did that decision sort of come to? How long did you mull over that decision for, do you feel?
Probably 6 months.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
We made the decision and we're gone in a month.
Oh, wow. Okay, so once you so obviously discussions back with pros and cons, and then was like, okay, that's it. That's our sort of a decision. And then how did you go about it with, obviously, how did you communicate it to your staff, and then how did you communicate it with clients?
So it was probably the worst conversation I've had in business ever.
Yeah.
So far. Was talking to our staff, because we had a really, really good crew, like a great crew down there.
Yeah.
Probably some of the best guys I've worked with. The guys up here now are great too, but we're starting to build very good relationships with our staff.
Yes.
Down there. So then when it came to going, hey, just before we made the decision, we had a conversation with a guy where we fired him. So when we made the decision, we really only had a tradie and 2 apprentices, and we were looking at hiring when we made the call. So yeah, it was a tough conversation. We gave them all 2 weeks' notice, realistically, and then paid them out a redundancy package.
Okay. Yeah.
We didn't have to because of how long some of them had been there, but we felt that was the right.
Yeah, felt was the right thing to do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, tough conversation.
Very tough conversation to have.
Did you bring them all at once, or did you do it one by one?
Did it all at once.
Brought everyone in. Did anyone have any inkling of what the conversation was going to be or anything like
that?
There
was one that did, because there was an apprentice that did, because I was working with him.
Okay, so you were working with him, so he knew what was sort of happening, and just through conversations.
They were just there.
Yeah.
And their parent was one of the people we were bouncing conversations off.
Okay, cool.
So they kind of had an inkling. They didn't know, but they knew something was going on.
Okay. Did you ever, did you ever realistically entertain the idea of handing it over to someone, or looking to potentially sell it, or even just get someone to, hey, here's a business ready to go, sort of thing?
Yes, we did. We offered it to a tradesman.
Okay. So within
we offered it to a tradie, the tradie we had at the time.
Yeah. Yes.
But he didn't want it.
Okay. Yep.
So we're like, cool, it is what it is.
Yeah. So obviously went through a few different steps, and then sort of once each door was closing, you sort of not get put into a corner as such, but the options start to dwindle down, and you have to make a decision.
What we ended up doing, we ended up splitting our work between 3 different other businesses down south.
Okay.
So there was 3 guys down there that I was becoming good mates with in the industry.
Yes.
One of them we gave probably 60% of our work to.
Mm-hmm.
The other one we gave a tradie and an apprentice to. We got them a job with that guy before, straight away.
Okay, yes.
So we also we just didn't make them redundant. We also had work lined up for the guys if they wanted when we had that conversation.
Okay, yeah, so they could continue on for a period of time.
So like we had new jobs lined up for them.
Oh, okay, so options with other companies.
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because at that time staff was hard to find then too.
Yeah, so
So there was a good mate of mine in the industrial sector that was screaming for staff, and I said, "Hey, these are our best two guys. They're probably going to be suited to it. One of them's still working with him. One of them's gone into the mines."
okay. Which is a
So
sort of a natural sort of progression anyway, probably, like, because he moved into that space and then probably saw a
he
different.
always wanted to go mines as a guy. That's why he didn't take the business.
Okay, yeah, fair call.
So then, yeah, and he's one of the guys that's still working with him. The apprentice is about to finish her trade.
Okay.
Which is going to be a fun conversation in a couple of months' time because I want her up here.
Okay.
We've kept in contact with her the whole time.
Yeah.
They have a family farm that's 2 hours from here.
Okay.
2 hours north of here, so up at Tenterfield.
Yep. Anyway,
so I don't know where that's going to land, but we'll see what happens.
okay.
She was a great apprentice. I'd imagine she's going to be a great tradie. Just, how you get that feeling when you see something.
Yeah, I think you can sort of pick it. That there's sort of there's the unicorns as such, I guess, that you sort of come across.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting sort of situation then. So obviously it then just got closed down, obviously. So did you sell off all the assets, or did you?
We sold when we moved up here. We sold private cars.
Yes.
Work cars.
Okay. Cool. And then, sorry, just take a step back. How did you communicate with your
clients?
Main clients, yeah.
Main clients, a lot of them, it was actually quite natural how it happened.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the big builds and stuff were wrapping up.
Okay.
Just naturally, just how we literally just started one, but I passed that off to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
They may hate me for it now, but it's a different scenario. We basically, the guys that we passed work off to, our clients, I matched them up with different businesses, really. So there was a guy that was starting out in the service space. I was like, cool, have the real estates. Well, I couldn't give him the real estates, but I could refer the real estates to him.
give it in, have it. Did you actually give them like an introduction and like a sort of not a handover as such, but like, hey, this is
yeah. The key players I rang them, had a chat with them. A couple of the big players I had a coffee with and explained what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guys, one of the guys we palmed builders off to, because that's the space he wanted to go into. And then our industrial service side of it, commercial side of it, we gave to another guy. But the handover for some of them could have been done better, but it was also a short space of time, and it wasn't like they were paying for that handover either.
Correct. Yeah, true. Yeah, it was just like a goodwill as such.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so moving on, you move up to your Coffs, you sort of pack up shop and relocate back up to Coffs Harbour. And this is a unique, because I have touched, this is why I probably call it like a unique sort of scenario, because we have touched on various topics around this previously, is that you're coming home into Coffs Harbour, where both you and Mon are from. But you're also moving into like a bit of a tricky space of that you actually have friends and people that you know in the industry. So, and I know from like a place where you come from is that you were conscious of, hey, like I'm not here to steal people's work as such. Like I'm not just gunslinging into town scenario. So I'd like to sort of see, how did you go about approaching the getting re-established? I know you rebranded, obviously.
So we rebranded Benchmark down there. We were Benchmark down south.
Yes.
So when we started adding staff, we moved away from Joe Pratt and went to Benchmark.
Okay.
Down there. So we had Benchmark down there and just basically we kept everything as it is, business running, ABN, everything was the same. It's not a new company up here, it's the same company, just different location.
New postal address.
Pretty much.
So then, how did you go about coming back into town and slinging your 2.5 and your pliers and your screwdriver around town?
Um, there's things I could have done better, and there's things I could have done worse.
Okay.
When we came up, before we started to move up, I contacted a couple of builders, mates of mine, before we moved up, and said, "Hey, we're moving back up. This is who I. This is
Give me all your work.
And then out of that, realistically, we didn't get too much.
Yeah.
Was looking like a fair bit, but a lot of the guys we're planning on getting work with were like partners with other things, and they had other Sparkies and stuff, obviously. Like, we're the new fish.
Yeah.
And then, which is understandable because moving up to trying to replace 3 or 4 bands with a solo is not going to happen.
Yeah, I know. Did you? How were you feeling when you moved into? Were you feeling confident or buoyed? Because obviously you've come from the experience of the South Coast, of where you sort of literally small network, didn't really know what was going to happen, and probably a high stressful environment where you're coming home. Hey, I know heaps of people. I've got a network, all that sort of stuff. Were you sort of optimistic and more hopeful second time round? And then the result in the end of it, was it actually like, were you deflated or buoyed by the end result? Like, we sort of, I guess, like the natural mindset is, like, hey, I've got plenty of network or relationship, I'll get heaps of work here. And the probably reality is that you probably ended up in a similar position, potentially, of like not much.
Yeah, I came in with an ego, in all honesty, being
Okay.
open and honest. I came in with a bit of an ego. And I think I've seen it a lot since I've actually moved here, believe it or not. The same ego that I had moving in, going, cool, I could do an electrical business in the city, I can do it in the country.
Okay.
And it's different. It is so different.
Where do you think the key differences lie?
So down south in the city, in Wollongong and that, everything was like rush, quote out, like smash stuff out quick. Because that's just was the nature of the vibe.
Yeah, a bit more commercial, I suppose, is a way to describe it. A bit more business.
Even the residential sector was commercialised in all reality.
Yes.
But coming up here, things are a lot more laid back and cruisier in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably also came in with a bit of cool. I know people here. It's going to be a lot easier this time around. And I think that lulled me into a bit of a false sense of security.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we did pick up work fairly quickly, there was still a hell of a lot of work involved in getting that work.
Okay.
The network helped, but again, we hadn't been here for 6 years. Businesses have changed. People I knew before were in the industry. New people were in the industry. It was just the whole landscape from what I left had changed of who was doing what. If that made sense.
Yeah, no. And then, so what did you do? How'd you go about it?
Funnily enough, two of our big works that we got going on now, like two of our builders we do work for now, rung me.
Okay.
They heard I was back in town and they rung me.
Okay.
Now, this is where it's a bit tricky because I worked with them with my previous boss up here.
Okay.
He wasn't working for him, hadn't worked for him for a couple of years, but it was still a very sticky situation.
Yeah, felt a bit awkward.
Yeah, a little bit. But I came to the fact of where I was like, well, I didn't approach them, they approached me. So it's not on me to worry about that scenario.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then, so how else did you go about it? Because I know there's a bit of a story that you've told previously where you basically just hustled.
So, I being down south, getting real estates and stuff like that. Cold calling became my friend down there.
Yeah. So you felt really comfortable with it. You'd had I guess, runs on the board or time in the game, so it wasn't a daunting process. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, it wasn't daunting, but we were moving up here. We approached a totally different market.
Okay.
Like down south, we were service-based real estates, that kind of stuff. Up here, I didn't want to do that again
Mm-hmm.
to that extent. I just didn't because of the admin load.
Yes.
Like
Yeah. So you lived it once, and you're like, oh, I don't need to do that again, or I
no,
don't want to.
don't want to. And coming in, I think I spent probably a month sussing out who was doing what in town and stuff like that. Like what Sparkies were doing what well, if that makes sense. So like there's a company here that does real estate. That's what they do. And in all reality, you can't push into real estate unless you've got staff. It's just not going to happen. So coming as a solo, I was like, cool, we're going to focus more on things I want to do this time. So like new builds, renos. We went and got our level 2 ticket. Did that. So we basically were approaching builders and stuff this time, not real estate. So the turnover time from call to work is way longer. Like with real estate, you can ring up and have a work order in your mailbox that afternoon. With a builder, you can ring up, they might be just starting a project, so they got nothing, depending on how big the builder is, for 6-9 months. So it was a little bit of a slower uptake in that scenario with the cold calling. And builders, as much as people give them slack, they are probably the most loyal trade I've ever freaking met. Most loyal client I've met. So it's very hard to get in with builders if you're not already in. Yeah, so a lot of the guys I was ringing had Sparkies already. So that was a fun conversation. Especially when I basically got a list of all the builders in the area is how I went about it to start off with.
Yeah, and just reached out and had a
Reached out
conversation.
from top to bottom and get, hey, we're Joe from Benjamin. I think in the first 3 months I rang close to 100 builders.
Okay.
3 or 4 months, close to 100 builders.
Yeah, wow.
Moving into the area. Now, unfortunately, it ruffled a lot of Sparky's feathers.
Okay.
Which I can understand because I would probably be a little bit threatened, especially if coincidentally was one guy we were ringing up. Like I rung builders, just basically down a list.
Yeah.
Didn't know who works for who, but I rung all his builders in a week.
Oh, wow.
So I rung like 6 builders and all of them used him.
Okay.
So as much it wasn't a targeted thing, he felt like it was a targeted thing. And then we had personal stuff going on as well. So when I met with the wholesaler, I was a bit out of it as well. So he felt I was personally attacking and chasing his work.
I felt like he felt it was a bit targeted.
Which is fair, which was a conversation we just had to have. Like it's not, I wasn't attacking his work, it's just how it landed out. And it didn't.
Really coincidental.
Just coincidental, yeah. So that was a hurdle that I did not expect to have moving back into cops.
So how did it sort of how did it pan out? And I mean, obviously you got your level 2 side of it. I know you hustled pretty hard. There was a bit of you got your workload cranking in that, and then you started to look into different areas. And I think the key, I guess, phrase that I pick up from what you sort of touched on there is that there's a clear and conscious decision to sort of work in the sectors that actually excite you, interest you this time round. So have you found that to be a little bit of a slower burn, so to speak, because it's actually targeting particular areas? Or do you feel like if you put all your energies into those areas, it's bearing fruit?
Yes and no. Like, we've also had, as you've had, a freaking ton lot of rain.
Yeah.
So in the avenues that we're pushing into, rain slows things down massively. But I think it's more targeting those areas that have been a little bit more enjoyable, especially when you finally get on the site and you spend 3 days roughing in. You know what I mean? It's just a bit funner than going between houses and putting ceiling fans in. But also in that avenue, moving up here, having these business down south already, we had systems set up. So this time around, I didn't have to learn how to manage staff at that level. I didn't have to learn how to track what work was coming in or how to invoice and stuff like that because I kind of knew.
So you're sort of hitting the ground a bit more prepared, sort of.
Like we grew quick, and then it like got to a point where cool. Also moving up here, I knew I had to get the business to a certain point by a certain time, because we bought a house based off our business numbers down south.
Okay.
So the year before we moved up, we pushed the business massively towards profit. Like everything we did was geared to having a big number at the end of the year. So the banks liked it. Because if you've ever been self-employed and tried to get a house loan, it sucks. So we knew to buy a house, we had to use South Coast numbers to get a North Coast house. So to do that, I had to get the business to a certain point where it was similar.
So you could actually service everything?
I could actually service the loan that I had got. So there was a bit of that background pressure, which I think if I didn't have, the business wouldn't have grown as quick.
Wouldn't it? The driving motivation sort of isn't there.
Isn't there. And then I found that once we got the house and got the loan and stuff and we settled into it, I'm still having to find a different kind of motivation to keep pushing the business forward. Mm-hmm. Because the initial drive of buying the house and being able to service the loans not as relevant now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've still got drive, still want to push it. I do like to add a couple more tradies, ideally, is where I want to land it. But yeah, it's finding that because there's still a lot of work to get done to get to that point.
Yeah, no, there's still obviously clients need to come on board, and there's obviously different revenue targets that need to be hit because you need to obviously sustain that workload. So probably want to have a bit of a chat around apprentices because I know you obviously had a couple down south, and then you've obviously also got another one. Obviously apprentices now. How do you feel they fit in with? I mean, there's probably a few things that we could touch on here. How do you feel like they fit in with your business first and foremost? How do they fit into the industry as a whole? And sort of just what are the important things to you with apprentices?
Apprentices are an interesting one, isn't it? Because realistically, they're an expense, not an income when you realistically. But having the two different styles of business, you can see where apprentices fit differently. If I were to do down south again, I would have less apprentices because of the kind of work we were doing. I didn't need a trading apprentice to go and change PowerPoints. Like it just wasn't.
The efficiency not there.
We needed them because we also had the projects.
Yes.
So in the project space, apprentices are great because depending on if it's quoted, you can do well with using apprentices correctly, provided you've got the correct supervision and all that stuff. I'm not saying one tradie, 6 apprentices. No, not doing that.
No.
But having a tradie and an apprentice team on a project compared to a real estate job is a lot more beneficial.
Yeah, just purely based in the efficiency sense.
Purely based on efficiency and price-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't charge to change a PowerPoint, like they're there for 20 minutes max. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't be doing tradie apprentice rates to change a PowerPoint. It just doesn't
stack up.
doesn't look
The
right.
optics of it are not great.
No.
So what are important traits within apprentices you feel these days that
So
are required?
our 3 apprentices we've had so different. All of them have been different strengths, different abilities, different backgrounds. For me personally, I don't hire anyone under the age of 18.
Okay.
Personally, that's my personal thing. 1, because I need them to have a license. 2, I would like them to have bills. More for because we had a young 16-year-old down south. Lived at home, no expenses. Like mum and dad did everything still, that kind of stuff. Didn't have a license. Well, they were 17 by the time they started, so they're their P's at least. But the drive to do extra work and work hard wasn't there because they didn't have the expenses.
Yeah, so there's the pressure of real life.
The pressure of real life wasn't there. And for me, looking at apprentices now, 1, work ethic, presentation, and license. They're the 3 things I look at. Not so much background, size, or anything like that. It's just, do you want to do the work? Can you get the work done? Can you get to work? Yeah. And for us being regional, license is huge.
Just purely geographically travel-wise.
Yeah. And if we're at a job to send, the wholesalers aren't going to deliver half an hour away. Like if you need something urgently.
It's just pure capabilities.
Pure capabilities. They don't have the staff to, for 1. Wholesalers now probably will, because we only really here use 1 wholesaler.
Okay.
That's all we do. Basically, everything we run through is 1 wholesaler. And then we've come up, we're pretty high up on their purchase list. So they look after us quite well now. But being able to send an apprentice from a site where the tradie does stuff to get urgent gear, like we try to stock our cars out pretty well, but you can't stock everything. It's just not.
It's just not possible.
Like if you go to a job and there's like a 4-pole 63 amp contactor, like you're not going to carry that, are you? Like you're just not.
Why not, Joe? I mean, come on, let's be reasonable.
Yeah, why not?
Why aren't you getting around costs in a little Pantech van with like a walk-in wholesaler in the back? No, I totally agree. It can be quite complex. So, where do the benefits do you see with the apprentices with different styles of work? So, do you see a difference in their growth by doing new build rent, like where they're actively involved, like as in that they're actually doing the work all the time, versus with service and maintenance style work, if they're sort of there all day, essentially there's an element of the day where they're sort of just standing around, watching, fetching. They still can be useful in certain elements, but versus when they're ripping and tearing in a project sense, I probably call it, sort of thing. Is there a difference that you've noticed?
I'd say first year there is no difference, realistically, because first year they're green. At least in the project sense, you can get them nailing in brackets and stuff like that, like doing simple stuff. But first year service-wise and fault finding, they're just an observer, aren't they, really? But
some tradies are still observers on fault finding.
Yes. We're just going to leave that there.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I never want to have an apprentice that becomes a tradie that's only done 1 type of work. Mainly because of my background. Knowing and learning a whole heap of stuff in different avenues, I think, made me a fairly well-rounded tradie.
Yeah, so you're looking to establish that rounded training skill set.
Yeah, like obviously you're going to have tradies that suit apprentices and that suit different avenues better. Like their brains just built that way, or their body's built that way. It's just is what it is. But having a, especially in a smallish business, like we're not tiny, but and in a large geographical area, I don't want my apprentice to just be able to do new builds because I might need to send him an hour away to fault find a dairy pump station or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. That you got to wear a few more hats.
So with apprentices, the benefits I've found with them, especially in the more project sense, I think they grow a lot quicker in the project sense. Like it's easier for them to pick up because they're doing it back to back, back to back, back to back. Like our apprentice at the moment, they can do spend 5 days on a new build and do the same thing over and over again. You know what I mean? Whereas when they go and do the service stuff, fault finding a Star Delta motor thing, like they've done that once. You know what I mean?
And I think the benefit nowadays is they've got Google to help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless there's no phone reception.
In the rural scenario, is very likely. But yeah, I think they grow a lot quicker in the project sense and become more capable quicker in the project sense than the service side. But in saying that, you can't do it, but it's a matter of in the service side, realistically, real estate service wise, the work you do for real estate isn't hard either. The hardest thing in real estate's dealing with the tenant.
Access to the property.
Access to the property. But you can get guys that have only, apprentices that have also, again, done only service work and are useless in the project sense. Because I've never had to look at a plan, look at a build and go, cool, we need to get something here, how do we get something there? It's just, we've changed the PowerPoint. So I think creating well-rounded apprentices is going to do the industry well. Then narrowing apprentice,
a particular pathway. I think it also serves them well, also too, as the individual. Yeah, no, I like it. So,
especially if you're going to want to do that, we have a big conversation with our apprentices before they start about what they want to do in 5 years' time. Because in all reality, in 5 years' time, they're going to be a tradesman. So are they going to want to hang around or are they going to want to piss off? That's also another big factor.
Yeah. Just want to touch on the EV sector. What attracted you to that? Sort of, how did you do any training to get around it, to get particular types, and is it a continually growing market for you in the Coffs region, and sort of what do you see the future in that area?
Massive difference between Kiama and here in the EV sector. Massive. Being regional, EVs have lagged in all reality. The public infrastructure is lacking massively here, and the distance we drive is a lot more. So what we found, we started the EV, and I got into it mainly because it was new, it was different. But when you get down to the crux of it, a basic domestic install is like an aircon circuit or an oven circuit. There's literally not much to it. 16 mil, to the unit, a breaker, connected to Wi-Fi, set the setting on the app. Domestic-wise, it's not hard. But when you start working into the whole load sharing, solar balancing, that kind of stuff is when it gets fun. And working out when you start doing commercial ones for motels or apartments and stuff like that where you've got 10 chargers lined up, but they only have a limited capacity coming into the building because the building was built in the 70s and that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that interests me more than the 7 and 22 kilowatt chargers. The way we learned, literally, was being probably the first on the scene down south that contacted a lot of suppliers. So down south, we brought a lot of them up with us. We still have that network. We just, our service area has changed.
Yeah, you just got your same contacts.
Yeah.
It's just shifted the area.
And then it's just, for me, it was learning on site.
Time in the game.
Yeah. Our first several EV chargers and that we didn't make money on because a lot of them were set price stuff and it was learning. But I feel it's an ever-growing space. It's going to keep growing, especially now. I don't know if you're aware, but with the building code and stuff like that, with new builds, they need to allow infrastructure and certain capacity for EV chargers on new builds. So when they do apartment blocks and stuff like that, I think it's a 1-for-1 for apartment blocks. For shopping centres and that, I think it's 1 in 100 they need to allow for infrastructure. So in that sense, like if you've got an apartment block of 20 units, you need to be able to have infrastructure put in there, not necessarily have the chargers there, but infrastructure there to allow for 20 chargers.
Yeah, wow.
So if you think about that in a mains perspective and a load balancing perspective, it's huge.
Yeah, massive. It is, yeah, massive. I guess that's where all the integrated networks of the multiple chargers come into it so that they can load shed. So obviously, if one's being used, it's not a big deal. But if all 10 are being used at the same time, there has to be a priority and load shedding organisation to it.
Yeah. So there's different ones, like there's different things set up with you can do. For your basic domestic stuff, you can get chargers that talk with your solar, so you load in and out. A lot of solar inverters have their own charger now, like brand charger. That works a lot better with that inverter.
It can integrate really nicely.
It's a lot easier. But there is third-party ones like your Zappy and stuff like that that integrate very well with solar for that kind of thing. And then when you start going on your broader spectrum of apartment blocks and stuff like that, a lot of the big charger mobs now have their own programs that they can work with that will monitor the incoming mains capacity of what's available and limit the charges to that, not limit units. Like you can still run your induction cooktop and stuff like that. But if you've got like a 200 amp supply available, but the units are using 100, like 150 or whatever per phase, at that time it'll limit the charges to only max at 50. So like they'll talk. So you've got basically a CT meter on the incoming, a CT on the EV out, and then it talks.
So yeah, massive sector of the industry that you've obviously got a bit of kept your finger on the pulse with and sort of kept up to date with it all.
The only thing we haven't kept our pulse on is the big DC chargers because that's out of our scope.
Yeah, okay.
We can't do that. Realistically, that's a level 1, whole new pad mount transformer. Like it's just out of our scope. So we haven't done that. We've done maintenance and repairs on a lot of them, but not installs on those.
Yes, and they're in the commercial style setups that you're doing the maintenance on them.
They're the 125 kilowatt DC ones.
The high charge sort of, basic. They're quite incredible. So what's a day or a week in the life of Joey now within Benchmark? Sort of what are the key areas that you focus on and work on? Obviously, you've got a team out there to be able to do the work. Obviously, I know you need to step in occasionally, but what's it look like?
For me personally now, I'm probably office 3-4 days a week. A lot of that's still lead gen and sales, like trying to get more in. And a lot of it's networking. But we're also Like I got 6 quotes sitting on my desk in front of me that I need to get out. Like it's just that's where I've pushed into getting an admin. I wish I did it earlier. I know
What
that.
do you think the big benefits of that have been?
It's going to be. It's like I think we've reaped probably 60% of the benefits
Okay.
because we have a part-time admin at the moment. I'd like to push it to a full-time so I can get my phone out of my hand
Yeah.
um, and delegate more because at the moment they're only in 2 days a week. So the other 3, I'm everything still. So processing work orders and that kind of stuff. Reconciling accounts and that. So admin does that. They create work orders. They prep all the invoices. They're not doing scheduling yet or phone calls yet. So once I can get scheduling and phone call off my plate, I feel like our business will take the next step.
You focus a lot more on on the on the I guess generation of the workload.
Yeah,
You have a
and
bit more control.
have more headspace to be present and available to learn stuff from clients. You know what I mean? Like at the moment, like if I'm in a client meeting, like in this conversation would have been when you're talking for an hour or so now, I've got 15 calls.
Okay. Yeah.
Like 15? Yeah. And that's not including texts. So to balance that out and get that away from me will make my quotes will come out a lot quicker.
That becomes a focus,
Yeah.
which obviously I've talked about with you previously before. Like if you can get 2 hours uninterrupted to get that quote out, as opposed to 4 hours of interruption, it's just a better product.
You miss
You
less.
become yeah.
Like,
So,
mm,
what do you feel like the biggest lessons you've learnt in business over time? So, as a business owner, as a
mhm.
Sparky, what are the sort of key learnings that you had, and even some mistakes that you might have picked up along the way as well?
Yeah. Um, for me, I think there's probably a couple of decent lessons. Um, one would be to just slow down a bit. I like to go 200 miles an hour. When you're going 200 miles an hour, whether it's work site quoting, things get missed, communication gets missed, clients get upset, staff get upset, and it just creates more chaos. So I think slowing down, not even just like slowing down on sites, one for like safety aspects, obviously, but slowing down in trying to achieve something, I think. Um, take pace is what I've learned. Because you're not, like Rome's not built in a day, but the internet tells you it is. Um, like a lot of, like especially for me, yeah, comparison and looking at what other people do probably wrecks me personally still.
Yeah.
So detuning from that and going, okay, I'm in my own race. I got my own business. My business is doing well. I don't need to compare what I'm doing with someone else and what they've achieved because we're different races. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned business wise. The next thing is treating every client like $1 million client. We got a classic story of one we did down south, Father's Day. It was when we first started Joe Pratt Electrical. We got a phone call from a guy that got us off Google. We were like 3 streets away. It was Father's Day. They were cooking Father's Day breakfast and RCD had failed. Went over there, swapped it, didn't charge the world, just charged him, I felt, fairly reasonably. And then 3 years down the track, little did we know, he put our name in the hat to get a renovation for a property that he was a landscaper maintenance guy for. It turned out to be 120 grand's worth of work. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, for me, there's a lot of push to go maximize clients, maximize money from a client, maximize from a client. But people just want to know they're looked after. And if people are looked after, they're going to look after you, I feel.
Yeah, very much. Relationships play a big part at the end of
Mm.
the day.
And I think it's lost, that aspect of business and stuff is lost a bit in today's market, especially with the big push to go big quick
rather than sustainable.
rather
So
than sustainable. Like I'd much, it's a big mind shift I've had over the last probably 5-6 years. Going into business is cool. I wanted the people we were around and associating ourselves with were big dollars, big income, quick. And then when the more you dive into it, the more longer you've been in business, you go, cool, that is achievable. But what are you breaking at the same time?
yeah, it is actually sustainable though as well.
Yeah.
Not only that too, is it at what cost, like you did touch on there,
Mm.
but also too at what cost business what? Like we're in business to make money.
Mm.
So like am I actually making money? So I think sometimes the focus can be lost.
And I think coming into business, a lot of the mentality of quick growth and quick that doesn't count for the fact that if you have a family, I feel like balancing that the balance is never right. Like you're never going to get it perfect because life changes. But for me, moving up here has been a big thing of prioritizing my family and my wife and my marriage. So I kind of have something that's outside of work to go back to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you're pushing 200% into a business, you don't have time for much else.
No, so something's got to give somewhere, doesn't it? I really like that, Joey. There's a few, I guess, learnings, lessons, how you want to take it, some words of wisdom in there. I'll sort of wrap it up or start to wrap it up on a few sort of quick fire questions around and elaborate as much as you like on it. What's the best job you've ever been a part of in your time in the industry, and sort of give us a bit of detail around it and why you enjoyed it so much? And it can be multiple reasonings around, define. It's your definition of what you feel the best job's been.
Best job. For excitement and something different, for us down south, we did a fairly so we did a build like a holiday home for Hamish Blake. I'm just going to say it for Hamish Blake down south, and that it was a reno. It's a reno, a fairly nice reno. But for me, the conversations I was able to have with him was probably the excitement part. Not because of who he is in his status, but just because it was just fun.
Yeah.
Like being able to talk about what we can achieve and do stuff in the house, just to see the excitement and the process that was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like not so much, oh, we did Hamish Blake's holiday house. No, it's like I had a few conversations with him and got to talk to him, and it was like we're just going to enjoy it and make it work.
Yeah, good. I think that lies in there a little bit potentially, and correct me if I'm wrong a bit, is that the type of work was enjoyable, but then equally too the client was enjoyable. So it's sort of like it's the whole process.
Yeah.
It fills your cup as such.
Yeah, but then also for me, I still love going to old people's houses and fixing stuff.
Okay.
Like I love, like we had one recently where this old lady was distressed. She couldn't get her power back on. But like you just rock up, you go, cool, it's your toaster plate, and just the joy that they get from knowing things are fixed and safe and they don't have to worry about it. I think seeing that little joy in Betty when you fix her power because she's all alone, like for me, that's the enjoyable part. Seeing people excited about what we do and happy with what we do.
Yeah, nice. Least favorite, sort of a nightmare job or worst job you've ever sort of had to be involved with?
We've done a lot of septic pits. That's not fun. It's never fun.
Yeah.
Not going to be a plumber. That's not
No.
my avenue. probably the most eye-opening experience I've had was probably not the it's a bit gross, but we did Department of Housing work for a while. Okay, and then we did an oven install, pulled an old oven out, put a new freestanding oven in. We had to get shovels to level the floor because of the amount of crap that was caked on the floor. So that was pretty gross.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah, getting shovels in to get fat and stuff that had been just caked under the oven to level the new oven out was kind of gross. But also, I think the experience of like experiencing different people's world views in that is gross and exciting at the same time, if you know what I mean. The worst job we've done, I don't know, I've probably blocked it out of my memory for sanity reasons, but I don't think we've had a job we look at and go, like, we've had jobs we go, that was tough and not fun, but I'd do it again.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, there'd be none there that I'd go. There's some clients you go like, what? Like, I'm going to avoid you, but the work wasn't crap. You know what I mean? The client was crap. But then when you look back at it, we'll probably crap too. So
yeah, I like that. No, I like that. I think that sometimes I always have it's an interesting question. I like to ask it because I like to see where the people's perspective comes from. Yeah, because I think I always look, could have we done something better? Could we have? Where could we have improved?
Like we've had a few nightmare clients, but when you look back at it now, we were also probably a nightmare tradie in that scenario as well.
Potentially, yeah. Or maybe there were red flags from the beginning that you didn't
notice,
that you didn't pick up on or sort of focus on. And then I want to finish with, what's your favorite tool in the tool bag, tool pouch, bucket, insert? What you utilize? What is your favorite tool of the trade?
Coat hanger.
The coat hanger.
Coat hanger. I love the coat hanger.
I love it. Nice. Do you steal it from Mon's clothes and just leave it lying on the floor, or do you have it? Absolutely,
absolutely. Metal coat hangers are hard to come by these days, mate.
They are. They're very, very hard to come by.
So when you find them, you got to cherish it. And unfortunately, my staff doesn't have the same respect for the coat hangers. The coat hangers get left or put in rubbish because it looks like rubbish. A lot. But for me, it's such a versatile tool.
I agree. I'm a massive coat hanger man. I love them.
It's a hook wire. It's poking up into a small hole and make sure you're not going to hit buttons. Like, it's handy. You can also, if you really want to, test to see if things are alive with it. But that's up to you. Wouldn't recommend it. But
wouldn't recommend it at all.
Wouldn't recommend it at all. And I think like it fits perfectly in my little hammer pouch. Like you fold it in half so it like just sits perfectly.
It's gonna be nice.
But it has to be the raw metal coat hangers. It can't be the plastic coated coat like metal ones. They're not the same.
No, I think that's a great little tool, and generally it's free as well.
That's bad, isn't it?
If you can get your hands onto one. So, well, Joey, mate, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. It was really good conversation diving into sort of your journey in the electrical industry, and definitely got some insight and some, I guess, knowledge out of positive, in between, and then also some lessons learnt. So I thank you very much for your time.
No worries. Thank you. It's been fun.
No problems at all. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll wrap that up there and tune in next time. Cheers.